Hello, my name is Lacey Lingelbach, and I am a graduating senior at the University of Florida studying environmental science with a focus on climate and water policy. Today, I will be presenting my findings from my undergraduate thesis titled Beyond Rising Seas, Understanding Climate Planning Challenges in Rural Inland Florida. Natural resource dependence, high poverty rates, low economic development, and poor access to healthcare contributes to rural climate vulnerabilities. In the past few years, tropical storms like Hurricane Michael have added socioeconomic stressors on recovering inland areas of Florida's panhandle. With projections of intensified extreme weather events and increased in-migration of coastal residents, rural preparation and adaptation is vital to prevent future disruptions. However, unlike their urban and suburban counterparts, few rural entities have adopted climate actions, and little research has addressed this gap. So my study answered what challenges are preventing rural inland communities in Florida from addressing climate change, and what do they need to overcome them? The primary source of information for my research came from a climate needs assessment survey of incorporated municipal and county government employees in Florida. I created this survey through my internship with UF IFAS Extension. For the purpose of my research, rural inland communities are defined as presented on this slide. So I analyzed the survey with a focus on responses from communities that fit this description. Those primarily in Northwest, North Central, and South Central Florida with 10,000 people or less. I also contextualized the survey's findings to rural localities by using evidence found in materials addressing rural issues and climate perspectives, some of which are listed on the slide. My analysis found 4 challenges: community sentiment, investment capacity, gaps in climate literacy, and external connections and coordination. Challenge 1, community sentiment. Shown in the 2 pie charts, local governments in Florida are highly concerned for intensifying extreme weather events, increased infrastructure maintenance costs, and loss of natural resources and economic revenue. These worries are likely shared by rural residents who value environmental protection and support climate policies related to extreme weather, mitigation, and economic aid. The bottom figure shows the distribution of climate prioritization across Florida's governing entities. Those who designated it as a high or moderate priority are primarily from large coastal cities, while those that selected low priority or not a priority at all are in small inland communities. By only recognizing it as a potential future problem, rural public and political actors are not focused on immediate climate issues and actions. What factors contribute to the lack of urgency? 1, distance from the coast reduces climate risk perceptions, especially since sea level rise is the common climate focus of Florida. Secondly, rural residents are more skeptical of climate science and its relation to the community because of the lack of locally specific climate information, political polarization, and strained relationships with outside experts. Challenge 2, investment capacity. In the figure, deficient staff and financial capacity pose the largest barriers to investing in climate action for Florida's local governments. With smaller tax bases, strained budgets, and fewer staff members, rural governments are more limited in including or expanding climate responsibilities. Although local residents can supplement the government's human and financial capacity, their sentiment towards climate change influences how they spend their own constrained resources. What factors contribute to strained rural investment capacity? 1, poverty and related socioeconomic issues reduce participation in climate conversations, as well as have higher priority in political and public agendas. Secondly, rural communities are isolated or excluded from external funding opportunities. Third, local climate solutions for those with constrained resources are less commonly promoted by climate experts, which reduces awareness of possible actions. Challenge 3, gaps in climate literacy. Rural residents are already prepared to manage environmental issues because of their in-depth environmental and natural resource knowledge and experience. However, climate knowledge is limited in Florida's local entities in some ways. As shown in the figure, anthropogenic influences on the climate, like sources and sinks of greenhouse gases, as well as climate models and their uses, are less understood. Moreover, as mentioned previously, not knowing where to start or begin with climate solutions ranked relatively high on the needs assessment survey, particularly for rural inland areas. Since knowledge is power, increased understanding in these three areas can empower communities to participate in climate efforts. What factors contribute to rural gaps in climate knowledge? 1, inaccessible or exclusionary climate training and education resources adds to the rural difficulties of acquiring information. Secondly, the lack of downscaled climate data and projections creates gaps and uncertainties regarding local climate issues. Challenge 4, external connections and coordination. External agents like those from federal and state agencies, nearby communities or counties, nonprofits and businesses, academic institutions, and environmental advocacy organizations offer direct and indirect financial, technical, and advisory support to local communities. Despite collaboration on other prevalent issues, Florida's rural stakeholders in small localities are often omitted and detached from climate planning opportunities provided by federal agencies, the state government, regional networks, and counties. So the climate efforts across Florida and within its 67 counties are disunified, and rural areas continue to be left behind. What factors contribute to weak interactions? 1, rural communities have less transportation and digital infrastructure to access or network with outside experts. Secondly, rural residents and employees are wary of those not connected to the local social networks, likely the EPA, federally elected leaders, and large-scale news media. Third, some outside experts decide not to include rural stakeholders in efforts because they think they are not concerned or aware. In turn, rural stakeholders feel that their perspectives are disregarded. With a better understanding of these challenges and their complex cyclical relationship, I established recommendations for creating a triangular management approach that relies on local stakeholders to lead community climate actions while external agents support them. On this slide, I have provided the recommendations for external supporting agents specifically, as many of you represent this group. On the left, actions tailoring or providing climate resources to rural inland communities are suggested. The middle category refers to ways of sharing information via affordable, accessible ways and through those in rural social circles like UFI FIS Extension, doctors, or local newspapers. The final group suggests ways to improve communications such as clearer messaging and more collaborative dialogues. Together, these actions can increase trust in outside groups, reduce access and capacity issues, and include rural communities in the climate conversation. Hence, my research explored rural barriers to climate action in Florida and identified potential ways to overcome them. In doing so, I've started to frame the rural Florida climate story and find innovative ways to build the state's resilience. I hope that future research continues to uncover this narrative. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you learned something new. My contact information is provided at the bottom of the slide if you have any further inquiries regarding my research or local climate action.